Let me ask you something hard but honest. How many years have you let slip through your hands while waiting for the right time to change your life? How many calendars have you filled with good intentions, new planners, bold goals, and still ended up circling the same problems? I'm not here to judge. I'm here to wake you up. Because the issue isn't the next 6 months. The real issue might be the last 6 years. The dream didn't die overnight. The momentum didn't vanish all at once. It slipped gradually in the small days where you did nothing different. And if you don't interrupt that pattern now, today you'll be asking the same question 6 months from now, again. Why am I still here? You've patched the roof, but never rebuilt the structure. You've tried the hacks, the sprints, the quick wins, but your foundation still leaks because it's not built on discipline. It's built on emotion. And emotion can start a fire, but only discipline builds something that lasts. I've said it for years. You can't change your life until you change your daily disciplines. The calendar doesn't transform you. The clock doesn't deliver results. Time doesn't make you better, discipline does. Time only multiplies whatever you're doing with it. And if you're doing nothing structured, nothing consistent, nothing aligned, then time is not your friend. It's the fuel of drift. But here's the powerful truth. 6 months is enough time to change everything if you stop wishing and start deciding. You don't need more knowledge. You need more decision. You don't need more time. You need more alignment. Because your future is not built with emotion. It's built with repetition, with discipline, with the daily decision to show up not as a victim of your past, but as the architect of your next chapter. And the good news is, you don't have to wait for January. You don't have to wait for a sign. You don't have to wait for perfect conditions. You can start building today. But let's get real about what that requires. You can't keep living passively and expect your life to move forward. You can't keep blaming time, age, circumstance, or environment. You can't keep patching over cracks and hoping the house won't fall. You need to tear out what's weak and build what's strong. And strength doesn't come from hype. It comes from habit. It comes from clarity. It comes from doing what matters even when you don't feel like it. That's the foundation of personal transformation, not desire, but decision. So before we go any further, stop right here and ask yourself, how much longer am I willing to coast? How many more months will I excuse the same behavior? How many more seasons will I let pass without getting serious about building a life I actually respect? Because I promise you this, your life will not change until you do. And that change doesn't require years. It requires 6 months of intentional, disciplined, focused effort, done daily, not occasionally, done deliberately, not emotionally, done with principle, not wishful thinking. You want a better life? Then don't wait for one to show up. Build it from the inside out, brick by brick. Discipline by discipline, habit by habit. It starts now. And it starts with a decision that this time, you're not going to patch the roof, you're going to rebuild the structure. Let's talk about the quiet enemy. Not failure, not rejection, not even lack of opportunity. I'm talking about drift. Because drift doesn't come with sirens. It doesn't shout. It doesn't knock you down. It creeps. It waits. It slides into your life disguised as busyness, as waiting, as rest, that turns into escape. Drift is subtle erosion. It doesn't take your life in one blow, it takes it in small concessions. One delayed decision, one ignored principle, one excuse repeated just enough times to become a pattern. And before you know it, another month has passed, then 6, then a year. And you're still talking about what you want, but living a life that says you've stopped believing it's possible. Drift doesn't show up in dramatic collapse. It shows up in daily choices. It's the moment you scroll instead of write. It's the morning you sleep through your vision. It's the conversation you avoid, the commitment you push, the clarity you never quite take time to define. It shows up when planning becomes a substitute for action. When your to-do list grows, but your actual progress shrinks. When you find yourself consuming more ideas than you apply. That's drift, not laziness, but disconnection. Disconnection from purpose, from discipline, from the internal compass that once kept you sharp. And here's the deceptive part. Drift can feel busy. You can drift while being active. You can be booked, scheduled, overextended, and still going nowhere. Because drift isn't about inactivity. It's about misaligned activity. It's movement without meaning. And if you don't stop long enough to check your direction, you'll wake up 6 months from now with more exhaustion, but not more progress. Let me offer you this warning. Drift is not passive. It's corrosive. It eats your belief. It wears down your urgency. It makes the extraordinary feel impossible. And worst of all, it starts convincing you that maybe the dream was too big to begin with. But the dream didn't die. It just got buried under distraction. It's still in you. It's still waiting. But you have to name the drift if you're going to end it. You have to face it with clarity. You have to confront the slow leak in your days. And you have to say with resolve, I'm not going to live another week disconnected from who I said I want to become. I've said it before and I'll say it again. If you don't design your life, someone else will use you in theirs. That's not a metaphor. That's reality. If you don't take the time to build your structure, you'll become a tool in someone else's. You'll wake up every day serving their vision, their urgency, their pressure, and then wonder why you feel so depleted. But drift doesn't stop because you're frustrated. Drift stops because you choose to direct your energy again. You choose to step back into discipline. There's a reason why theologically, drift is considered disobedience to potential. You've been given gifts, time, breath, resources, mind. And with that comes responsibility, not just to dream, but to steward, to multiply, to become, to build something that honors what you've been given. And every day you let drift dictate your actions is a day you quietly say, I'll do it later. But there is no later on the calendar. There's only now. There's only what you choose today. So stop and ask, am I drifting? Have I been busy but unproductive? Am I acting but not advancing? And if the answer is yes, then you're not weak, you're just unfocused. And focus can be rebuilt with discipline, with decision, with daily structure that pulls you out of motion and back into momentum. That's what we'll do next. But first, make the choice. Drift doesn't end on its own. It ends when you interrupt it with intention. One of the most dangerous things you'll ever do without even noticing it is trade consistency for chaos. Not dramatic chaos, but subtle chaos. Quiet chaos. The kind that doesn't wreck your life overnight, but unravels your future one scattered day at a time. You say yes to everything. You chase 10 goals. You try 5 new habits this week and none the next. You write out a new routine and abandon it at the first disruption. And slowly, without knowing it, you've built a rhythm of randomness. You've trained your days to dance to the tune of mood, not principle. And while it may feel exciting for a while, chaos is never creative for long. Eventually, it steals your focus, erodes your trust in yourself, and burns your energy on things that don't matter. You might feel productive. You might even look busy. But if you're honest, you're spinning 10 plates with no rhythm. And plates don't just fall because of neglect. They fall because there's no system holding them up. That's what consistency does. It's the system, the groove, the structure. It doesn't make every day perfect, but it makes every day intentional. And that intention, when repeated, is what builds strength. It's not what you do occasionally that changes your life. It's what you do consistently. But most people aren't failing from lack of desire. They're failing because they keep starting over. And let me tell you, there's a heavy price to pay for constantly starting over. Every time you restart, you lose time, confidence, and momentum. You train your brain that discipline isn't permanent. You start to doubt yourself. You wonder, why can't I stay with anything? But the problem isn't you. It's that you've been choosing chaos instead of rhythm. You've been saying yes to everything and building nothing. You've been pursuing variety over stability. And variety might feel exciting in the moment, but long-term, it's expensive. So what's the fix? Simplicity, commitment, repetition. You find a few key disciplines and you anchor your day around them. You stop trying to do everything and you start doing a few things well. You choose depth over distraction, structure over spontaneity. You build the kind of rhythm that doesn't rely on emotion to be effective. Because once you do that, the chaos begins to quiet, the noise dies down, and what you're left with is space to actually build something solid. So ask yourself today, have I traded consistency for chaos? Have I confused activity with structure? Have I been chasing too much and finishing too little? If so, it's not too late to simplify, to refocus, to build a rhythm you can trust. Because 6 months of consistent effort will outperform 6 years of random hustle. And the dream you want isn't hiding behind another plate to spin. It's waiting on you to lock in your rhythm and let it carry you forward, one solid step at a time. Let's get honest about another dangerous trade that happens far too often, and it happens quietly. without us even realizing it. It's when we trade responsibility for resentment. When life doesn't go the way we wanted, when things slow down, when people disappoint us, or circumstances get unfair, it's easy to shift from builder to blamer. Instead of saying, I need to adjust, we say, they ruined it. Instead of asking, what's my next move? We say, this isn't my fault. And little by little, we stop building and start resenting our job, our spouse, the economy, the past, even God himself. But let me be clear, that trade, when you let resentment take the place of responsibility, is the moment you give away your power to grow. See, resentment feels good at first. It comforts the ego. It explains away the stagnation. It allows you to avoid the weight of self-examination. But here's the truth. Resentment may relieve you temporarily, but it robs you perpetually. Because every ounce of energy you spend blaming is an ounce of energy you didn't spend building. Every time you point outward, you forfeit the opportunity to look inward. And without that reflection, nothing changes. Nothing aligns. Nothing gets built. You just keep reliving the same emotion, telling the same story, waiting for someone else to make it right. But no one can make it right for you. That's your job. I've met people who've been stuck for years. And when you ask why, the answer always starts with someone else. If my boss hadn't, if my parents had only, if they hadn't left, if the market didn't crash. And every time they say it, you can hear the life leaking out of them. Because they've built their entire philosophy around what happened to them, not what's possible through them. And you cannot build a dream on a foundation of blame. It will crumble every time. But here's the shift. Here's the moment of strength. When you decide to stop rehearsing who hurt you and start remembering who you're called to become. When you stop waiting for someone else to fix it and you start asking, what can I do with what I have? Because no matter what they did, no matter how unfair it was, no matter how long it delayed you, you are still the builder. And builders don't work with perfect material. They work with what's available. They don't ask for ease. They ask for clarity. They don't carry bitterness. They carry tools. I want you to get this. The people who hurt you can't stop you. The circumstances that frustrated you can't cancel you, but your attitude toward them that can stop you cold. Resentment might feel justified, but it's still poison. And as long as you drink it, your vision will remain cloudy. Your effort will remain scattered. Your energy will remain low. So drop the poison, pick up the hammer, and start building again, not because they deserve your forgiveness, but because you deserve your future. From this day forward, make the choice. No more resentment. No more blame. No more they did, or if only. Just this. I am the builder. And from this day forward, I build forward. Not around the past, not under its weight, but above it. With discipline, with clarity, with relentless personal responsibility. Because when you trade back resentment for responsibility, you get your life back. And 6 months of that mindset, that will change everything. There's a moment, subtle and often unspoken, when a person stops leading their life with vision and starts running it on escape. It doesn't come with an announcement. You don't wake up one day and declare, I've traded my dreams for distraction. No, it happens slowly, quietly. You start spending a little more time scrolling, a little less time planning. You stay up later than you need to, not because you're productive, but because you're avoiding your own reflection. You binge content that entertains you, but never builds you. You go through the motions of your life, eyes open, but spirit asleep. And somewhere in that drift, the dream that once burned bright becomes distant, blurry, forgettable. Escape wears many disguises. Sometimes it's Netflix. Sometimes it's numbing through food. Sometimes it's always being busy so you don't have to sit with the tension of being unfulfilled. You might call it downtime. You might even call it self-care. But deep down, this isn't restoration, it's avoidance. You're not recharging, you're retreating. And while the world may applaud your ability to unplug, your vision quietly suffers. Because the life you want doesn't get built while you're checked out. It gets built in the moments when you decide to feel the discomfort of where you are and do something about it. Now, let's be clear, I'm not anti-rest. I believe in recovery. But there's a difference between resting for renewal and escaping out of fear. Vision will make you uncomfortable. It'll demand clarity. It'll ask you to make hard choices, to leave behind what's familiar, to stretch into a future that hasn't been built yet. And if you don't have the courage to face that tension, you'll reach for something, anything that lets you forget. But you can't build your dream life with your eyes closed. You can't construct a future while numbing the present. That's not strategy. That's surrender. Imagine trying to build a house with a blindfold on. You've got the tools. You've got the materials. But you can't see where to place anything. That's what happens when you trade vision for escape. You still have the hours. You still have the potential. You still have the opportunity. But your focus is gone. And without focus, time becomes waste. Energy becomes noise. And your best years get spent not in purpose, but in avoidance. But here's the truth you need to hear. You haven't lost your vision. You've just stopped feeding it. You've stopped rehearsing it. You've stopped writing it. You've stopped pursuing it with intention. And anything you stop feeding will eventually feel like it's dead. But it's not dead. It's dormant. And it can come back to life the moment you stop running and start remembering who you are. The moment you turn off the distraction and turn back to your direction, that's when the shift begins. That's when escape loses its grip. That's when clarity returns. And that's when building can resume. So ask yourself honestly, have I been escaping instead of executing? Have I filled my life with movement to avoid facing what I haven't built? Have I replaced vision with distraction, purpose with passivity, direction with digital noise? If the answer is yes, don't shame yourself. Just wake yourself. You don't need to apologize for being tired. You need to realign with the vision that made you hungry in the first place. The next 6 months can't afford your escape. They require your eyes open. They require your full attention. Because vision doesn't demand perfection, it demands presence. And the moment you show up fully, you'll find that what felt so far off is already within reach. Now that we've exposed the silent trades, those moments where consistency was given away for chaos, responsibility surrendered to resentment, vision blurred by escape, it's time to introduce the only force strong enough to reverse them all. Discipline. And I want to make this unmistakably clear. Discipline isn't punishment. It's not misery. It's not restriction. Discipline is construction. Discipline is freedom through structure. It's the daily proof that you are no longer drifting, no longer blaming, no longer delaying the life you said you wanted. Discipline is the builder's tool set, the hammer, the level, the square. It's what turns vague desires into visible design. And without it, you don't build. You wish, you talk, you hope, but you don't build. Let me ask you, what kind of builder shows up to the job site with no tools? None. Because he knows that vision alone won't raise walls. Hope alone won't install windows. A dream life, like any meaningful structure, demands structure. And that structure is built with tools called habits, tools called focus, tools called daily repetition. The problem isn't that you lack tools. It's that you haven't chosen to use them consistently. You've got the hammer, but you've left it in the bag. You've got the blueprint, but you keep redrawing it instead of executing it. And the only way to build the life you want in 6 months is to pick up the tools and start using them, like your future depends on it, because it does. Discipline, at its core, is about alignment. It's when your actions finally start matching your values, when your habits reflect your priorities, when your day is no longer decided by emotion, but by direction. And the moment you step into that alignment, everything begins to shift. You stop waiting for motivation because you've built a rhythm that carries you. You stop apologizing for the past because you're too busy building the present. You stop fearing the future because you've laid a foundation strong enough to support it. You're not stuck. You're undisciplined. And that's not an insult, it's an invitation. Because if discipline is the issue, then discipline is the answer. And discipline is something you can control. You can choose it. You can practice it. You can grow it. You can rebuild your entire life around it. Not all at once, but daily, one block at a time. That's why the next 6 months matter. Because they're not just 6 months. They're a lifetime in seed form. Every habit you establish is a brick. Every promise you keep is a beam. Every moment you say, I'll do it anyway, is a nail driven deep into the frame of your future. I've said it for years. Success is something you attract by the person you become. Not by luck, not by networking, not by chance. By becoming the kind of person who can hold what you've been asking for. That becoming? That's discipline. That's waking up when it's easier to sleep in. That's saying no to distraction when it's more tempting than ever. That's writing it down, reviewing it, rehearsing it, recommitting when the emotion wears off. That's becoming. And that's why some people rise while others recycle the same year over and over again. Not because they were more gifted, but because they were more grounded. So I ask you, are you finally ready to pick up the tools? Are you done rearranging your excuses and calling it strategy? Are you willing to trade emotion for execution? Because 6 months is not a long time, but 6 months of discipline that can change your body, your finances, your habits, your presence, your reputation, your confidence, your clarity, your future. But you must begin today. No more drifting. No more talking. It's time to build. If discipline is the tool set, then clarity is the blueprint. And without a blueprint, even the best tools are useless. You wouldn't hire a builder who says, let's just start hammering and see what we get. No, you expect a plan, a drawing, a vision, and your life works the same way. It doesn't rise by chance. It rises by design. And that design must be visited every day, not once a quarter, not once a year, every day. That's why the first foundational discipline in building the life you want in 6 months is what I call the daily clarity practice. A short, structured moment every morning where you ask 2 powerful questions. What do I want? And who am I becoming? Now, those questions may seem simple, but don't underestimate their power. Because when you stop asking those questions, you stop steering your life. Drift creeps in. You start living off someone else's urgency. You wake up and respond instead of direct. You spend the day solving problems that don't matter and pushing goals that were never yours to begin with. But when you take 5 minutes, just 5 intentional, sacred minutes each morning to reconnect with what you want and who you're becoming, your actions shift, your words shift, your posture shifts. Because now your day has context, and context creates conviction. What do I want? Don't overthink it. Write it. Speak it. Remind yourself. I want to be a man of strength, clarity, and discipline. I want to double my income. I want to restore my marriage. I want to build a business that honors my values. Whatever it is, name it. Clarity begins with naming. And if you don't name it daily, you'll forget it weekly. Then comes the second question. Who am I becoming? This is where you align identity with behavior. This is where you say, today, I become someone who shows up even when I don't feel like it. Someone who leads with calm. Someone who speaks with purpose. Someone who walks in responsibility. That identity becomes your compass. And when you lose your way, and you will, it's this morning ritual that brings you back to center. And let me tell you why this matters. Because in 6 months, you will arrive somewhere. That's not in question. The only question is whether you arrive on purpose or by accident. Whether you arrive fulfilled or confused all over again. The daily clarity practice is what keeps you aimed. It's what stops your feet from wandering when the path gets foggy. It's what gives your discipline direction. Because hustle without direction is just exhaustion. And clarity without repetition is just a fleeting idea. You need both clarity and daily reinforcement. So here's the practice. Every morning, before the phone, before the world, you sit down with paper and pen and ask, what do I want? And who am I becoming? You write it. Even if it's the same words every day, especially if it's the same words every day, because repetition is the mother of clarity, and clarity is the fuel of discipline. And discipline is what builds the life you said you wanted. Don't underestimate this. It's not a journal entry. It's not a motivational trick. It's your blueprint. And when you review the blueprint every morning, you start building on purpose, 1 brick at a time, with your head high and your direction set. And before long, 6 months will pass, and you'll look back and realize, this isn't just a better version of my life. This is the one I chose to build, and it started with 5 minutes of clarity each morning. Let me introduce a rule that will change the texture of your life, if you'll take it seriously, not as an idea, but as a non-negotiable. I call it the one thing completion rule. And it's this. Every day, no matter how noisy, no matter how interrupted, no matter how imperfect your schedule feels, you complete one meaningful thing. Not 5 half-finished ideas, not 7 half-hearted starts. 1. Complete. Brick. Laid with full attention. Start to finish. A clear act of closure. Because while the world teaches you to multitask, to chase complexity, to start 100 projects and finish none, builders don't live in the emotional high of beginning. They live in the dignity of completion. You've heard the saying, success is a few simple disciplines practiced every day. But what gives those disciplines power is completion. Because every time you finish something meaningful, something shifts inside you. Your confidence grows. your trust in yourself increases. Your mind starts to see that you're no longer the kind of person who starts and fades. You're the kind of person who finishes. And that belief is what fuels consistency. That's what creates traction. That's what turns momentum from myth into movement. Now, let me be clear. One thing doesn't mean it has to be huge. It might be a workout. It might be a chapter written. It might be a hard conversation had. It might be a sales call made. It might be your morning routine completed with full presence. What matters is not the size. What matters is the completion, the closing of a loop, the evidence at the end of the day that says, I showed up, I followed through, I laid a brick. That brick matters more than 10 things you almost did. Why is this so powerful over 6 months? Because it compounds. That's the law. One thing completed each day doesn't just add up, it builds up. It builds self-respect. It builds internal strength. It builds an identity of someone who can be counted on by others, but more importantly, by yourself. And when you trust yourself to finish, the door to real growth flies open. Because you stop waiting for perfect conditions. You stop stalling under pressure. You stop running from the discomfort of process. You get in, you execute, you finish, and you do it again tomorrow. Let me give you a metaphor. Building a life is like stacking bricks, not tossing them, not juggling them, stacking them neatly, intentionally, one at a time. Stack enough bricks, and the wall stands. Stack more, and the structure grows. Miss a few days, the wall doesn't fall, but you feel it, you know it. Because building isn't just about what's visible, it's about the habit of finishing what you start. That's the quiet power of the one thing completion rule. And if you want to create the life you want in 6 months, this rule cannot be optional. So starting today, every day, you ask yourself, what one thing will I complete today? And then you do it. No fanfare, no overthinking. Just finish. And then tomorrow, you stack another and another. Until your life isn't a pile of potential, it's a structure of proof. And it was built one completion at a time. You've heard it before. You are what you eat. But I'll tell you something even more accurate. You are what you feed your mind. Because while food shapes your body, thought shapes your future. And just like your physical health demands guardrails around sugar, excess, and junk, your mental health, your clarity, your discipline, your resilience demands mental nutrition guardrails. You don't get a focused life with a foggy mind. You don't build consistency on a diet of chaos. And yet, many people try to construct their future while consuming a steady stream of distraction, gossip, outrage, and noise, and then wonder why they feel overwhelmed, scattered, or defeated before the day even begins. Let's get practical. If the first thing you see each morning is someone else's life, someone else's agenda, someone else's curated image on a screen, you've already surrendered the most valuable real estate in your mind. The first 30 minutes of your day shape the rest of it. It's when your mind is most absorbent, most impressionable, most ready to receive. And what you pour in during that time, whether it's news, panic, social envy, clickbait politics, or endless scrolling, will determine the tone of your thinking. And tone, over time, becomes philosophy. And philosophy, as I've said for years, is what shapes everything. So you've got to protect your mind like your life depends on it, because it does. Mental nutrition means you stand guard at the door of your mind. It means you become selective, intentional, strategic about what you allow in. You don't just consume, you curate. You choose input that builds you, that aligns with your vision, that reminds you of who you're becoming. You read books that sharpen you. You listen to teachings that elevate you. You engage with material that challenges your thinking, strengthens your discipline, expands your sense of what's possible. Let me give you a metaphor. Imagine your mind is a garden, and every idea you consume is a seed. If all you're planting are weeds, fear, outrage, negativity, shallowness, then what do you think your mental harvest will look like 6 months from now? But if you feed it wisdom, clarity, principle, and truth, then over time, that becomes your new environment. That becomes the default atmosphere of your thinking. And when your atmosphere changes, so does your attitude. And when your attitude changes, your actions follow. But you've got to make it a discipline. This isn't about occasionally listening to a good message or reading a few pages when you feel motivated. This is about installing a guardrail, a boundary, a standard. Maybe it's no phone for the first 30 minutes. Maybe it's replacing morning noise with a daily philosophy reading. Maybe it's swapping social media time with audiobook learning. But whatever you do, make it a system. Make it sacred. Make it non-negotiable. Because what you rehearse, you become. And if you want to build a new life in 6 months, you cannot afford a single day of mental drift. So from this day forward, remember this phrase. You are what you rehearse. Your mind is not neutral. It's being formed by something. Make sure it's being formed by truth, by principle, by philosophy that outlives trends. Because the right input builds the right mindset, and the right mindset builds the right life. Guard your mind. Feed it like it matters, because it does. Let's talk about your time. Because the truth is, time is not your problem, priority is. You have enough time. We all do. What you don't have is enough structure. You don't have a calendar that reflects your character. You don't have a daily rhythm built around your non-negotiables, the core habits, the daily disciplines, the small, consistent actions that build the life you said you wanted. And until those non-negotiables are scheduled, they are optional. And if they remain optional, life will always feel like it's happening to you instead of being built by you. This is where the discipline of time blocking enters the frame. Because time blocking is more than a productivity trick, it's a declaration of ownership. It's how you declare these things matter enough to be built around. You don't squeeze them into the cracks. You don't hope you'll get to them. You build your life around them. Just like a builder frames the house before decorating it, you frame your week around the things that matter most. Reading, writing, reflection, movement, deep work, family, faith, contribution. Not as extras, not as bonuses, as pillars. The problem with most people's schedule isn't that it's too full. It's that it's full of other people's priorities. It's been hijacked by noise, obligations, and emotion-based decisions. But a builder doesn't leave the frame of the house up to chance. He locks it in. He nails it down. He protects the structure before anything else is added. Why? Because the frame determines the function. And your weekly frame, your time blocks, determine what kind of life you're actually constructing. Drift happens in the unprotected hours. So what does this look like practically? It means you sit down once a week and block in your non-negotiables first. Not after the meetings, not after the errands, not around the chaos. Before all of it, you claim your mornings. You define your creative hours. You make sacred space for planning, learning, reviewing. You decide when your body moves, when your mind refuels, when your spirit reflects. And you defend those blocks like your life depends on them, because it does. This is not rigidity. This is integrity. This is honoring what you said matters most. And when your calendar begins to reflect your commitments, your real ones, not your emotional ones, something powerful happens. You stop feeling behind. You stop making excuses. You start finishing. You start building. You walk through your week with alignment instead of apology. And I'll tell you something that will save you years of frustration. You cannot out-discipline a chaotic schedule. If you don't make space for growth, growth won't happen. If you don't protect your future with structure, you'll keep repeating your past with excuses. The calendar is not just a tool for appointments. It's a mirror of your philosophy. Show me your time blocks, and I'll show you what you're actually becoming. So from now on, frame your life like it matters, because it does. Your goals, your health, your habits, they all require real estate on your calendar. Don't wish for more time. Build with the time you already have. Block it. Own it. Use it to shape the life that won't build itself. There's a principle I've seen proven again and again in the lives of the most disciplined people I know. Those who rise early, lead with clarity, build with consistency. It's this: movement creates momentum. And when I say movement, I don't just mean philosophical or strategic movement. I mean physical movement. I mean honoring the body, engaging the breath, setting the frame of your energy for the day. Because your energy is not a mystery. It's not a gift. It's not random. It's a byproduct. And if you don't move your body with intention, you will not lead your life with power. Now, this might seem simple. Some overlook it. Others dismiss it. I need discipline, not workouts, they say. But hear me loud and clear. You cannot discipline a foggy brain and a tired body. You cannot focus when you feel sluggish. You cannot lead when your posture slouches. You cannot inspire when you haven't moved in days. The human system, mind, body, spirit, is interwoven. When you move the body, you activate the mind. When the blood flows, so does your ability to decide, to execute, to stay awake to the demands of your assignment. That's why this discipline cannot be skipped. Movement doesn't have to be complicated. I'm not talking about perfection. I'm talking about motion. 10 minutes of stretching, 20 minutes of walking, a brisk sweat in the morning, a strong push at lunch. It's not about building a magazine body. It's about building internal momentum, about becoming the kind of person who engages their body so they can show up for their work, their family, their purpose, awake and present. Because presence doesn't just come from silence. Sometimes it comes from sweat. Let me offer you this. Your movement routine is not separate from your life building. It is your life building. Because when you neglect the physical, it bleeds into the mental. It clouds the emotional. And before you know it, your attitude slips, your thinking dulls, your mood sours, and you chalk it up to burnout or lack of motivation, when in reality, you simply haven't moved. You've been sitting too long. You've been scrolling instead of sweating. You've been draining instead of fueling. And the price you're paying? Foggy mornings, unclear afternoons, guilt-filled nights, and a life that feels like it's happening to you instead of through you. But this is not a condemnation, it's an invitation. To get back to the basics, to get back in the body, to treat your energy like it matters. Because when your body moves, something powerful happens. You start to remember what it feels like to be alive. You start to reclaim the rhythm of power, focus, and certainty. And that rhythm, when practiced daily, becomes a platform for all the other disciplines to stand on. So here's the challenge. Move your body every day. Not out of punishment, but alignment. Move not because you hate where you are, but because you believe in where you're going. Move because you respect your assignment enough to be strong enough to carry it. Movement is not a side habit, it's central. It is the fuel. And when the body is in motion, the spirit tends to follow. So if you want momentum, don't wait for it. Create it. One walk, one run, one stretch, one push, one rep, one practice, until motion becomes identity, and identity becomes action. And action becomes a life you're proud to carry because you had the energy to build it. Now let me give you the final cornerstone in this framework of foundational disciplines, the one that ties the entire structure together, that closes the loop, that prevents drift from creeping back in when life gets noisy again. Because no matter how disciplined you are, no matter how clear your goals, no matter how strong your morning starts, or how consistent your habits, you will drift. You will forget. You will lose a day to stress, a few moments to emotion, a task to distraction. That's not weakness. That's humanity. But what separates the builder from the drifter isn't perfection. It's the willingness to course correct quickly. And that's what this discipline is all about. You see, the people who win in the long run are not those who never slip. They're the ones who realign often. They sit down at the end of every week, not just when things go wrong, and they reflect. They ask hard questions. They review their actions, their energy, their focus. They look at their schedule, their tone, their language, their follow-through. They zoom out and ask, what worked this week? What slipped? What's next? Not out of guilt, but out of ownership. Not to shame themselves, but to sharpen themselves. Because life doesn't improve just because you want it to. It improves when you pay attention. The weekly review is your reset. It's your recalibration. It's your internal meeting with the builder inside you. And it only takes 30 minutes, maybe an hour. But those 30 minutes have the power to redeem the next 7 days, to prevent a week of blind motion, to anchor you back to the blueprint, to remind you of your standards, to make micro adjustments before they become major detours. Let me offer you a metaphor. A pilot doesn't wait until the end of a 6-hour flight to realize they're off course. No, they make tiny course corrections every few minutes because they understand that direction is maintained by feedback. And your life is the same way. You can't expect to arrive at your destination if you never stop to evaluate your path. The weekly review is that feedback loop. It's the tool that keeps you honest. And it's the practice that, more than almost anything else, keeps drift from stealing your year. Now, this isn't about obsessing. It's not about rewriting your goals every week or constantly changing direction. It's about reinforcing what matters. It's about celebrating the wins, identifying the weaknesses, and clarifying your next few steps. It's about making sure that what you're doing still aligns with who you're becoming. And when done consistently, this review becomes something sacred. It becomes your edge. It becomes the moment every week where you reclaim your focus before the world pulls you off course again. So how do you start? Set a block in your calendar, same time every week. Turn off distractions. Pull out your journal or digital planner. Review your daily completions. Revisit your clarity prompts. Ask yourself, did I honor my time blocks? Did I feed my mind well? Did I move with energy? Where did I hide? Where did I build? And then, most importantly, what do I need to adjust this week to stay aligned? Because alignment doesn't happen automatically. It happens when discipline meets reflection. And 6 months of that doesn't just change your life, it transforms your character. So don't skip the review. Don't race into next week on the fumes of last week's effort. Pause, recenter, recalibrate. Because the builder doesn't just build, he checks the frame. And you must do the same week after week until your life becomes a structure worthy of what you once only imagined. If you practice the disciplines we've just walked through, not once, not for a weekend, but daily, weekly, relentlessly, something almost invisible begins to happen, quietly, steadily, without applause or announcement. A new life begins to emerge. Not a life of hype or fantasy, but a life of strength. A life that stands. A life that doesn't need to scream because it's built with substance. A life that doesn't fall apart when the pressure comes because it's been anchored in principles that don't change. And that life, my friend, doesn't happen by accident. It's born through discipline, through daily clarity, through repetition, through 100 small completions that begin to reconstruct your identity from the inside out. See, what starts as small actions, writing a vision, moving your body, blocking time, finishing one thing, starts to build something beneath the surface. You begin to believe yourself again. You begin to trust your own voice. The internal dialogue, once full of doubt and delay, starts to shift. I don't follow through becomes, I did it again today. I'm scattered becomes, I'm structured. I don't know where to start becomes, I already started. And that shift, that's the rebirth of your internal credibility. That's the quiet, powerful voice of someone who knows deep in their gut that they are becoming dependable, not just to others, but to themselves. And let me tell you, that kind of trust can't be bought. It can't be borrowed. It has to be earned. And you earn it by building the kind of life where what you say and what you do finally begin to agree. Where your values are no longer ideals, but patterns. Where your days don't just pass, they produce. Where each week you live feels like a clear step forward, not another spin of the same old wheel. And one day, perhaps sooner than you think, you look up, and the fog that once filled your mornings has cleared. The guilt that once clung to your evenings has lifted. And what you see in the mirror is not just a person who wants change, but one who chose it. It's like pouring concrete after years of patchwork. No more temporary fixes, no more emotional band-aids, no more elaborate plans that never make it past Monday. Just solid footing, simple truths, clear direction, deep roots. And that's what becomes unshakable. Not because storms stop coming, but because you stop swaying. Let me warn you, this new life won't be loud at first. It won't be flashy. It might not even be noticed by others for a while, but it will be noticed by you. In your peace, in your energy, in the way you respond under pressure, in how you recover when you slip, in how you no longer need to shout to feel valuable, in how your presence becomes quieter, stronger, more grounded. This is what happens when you build not just motivation, not just movement, but a new rhythm of being. And once that rhythm is installed, the results are inevitable. But here's the caution. If you drift here, if you get casual, if you skip the review, if you disconnect from your disciplines, you won't fall immediately. That's the danger. You'll just start leaking. And weeks later, months later, you'll look up and wonder, how did I lose the momentum? And the answer is simple. You stopped building. So don't stop. Not now. Not when you're this close. The next 6 months don't have to look like the last 6 years. They can be the most aligned, most consistent, most powerful season you've ever walked through, but only if you keep the pattern alive. You've done the work. The frame is up. The foundation is poured. The structure is sound. Now stay with it. Reinforce it. Live inside the house you've built and let it become your new normal. Because the life you want is no longer out of reach. It's already under construction. And every day you stay aligned is another day. The dream becomes reality. We've covered the ground. We've poured the foundation. We've walked through the disciplines and the dangers, the choices and the corrections. And now, here we are at the edge of decision. And if you remember nothing else from this message, remember this. Decide now. Don't beg later. Because regret is a cruel price to pay for delay. And the bitter truth is, many people will spend the next 6 months the same way they spent the last talking, wishing, circling, excusing, and then come crying to the calendar, begging the next season to do what the last one didn't. But the calendar isn't your savior. You are your decision. You can't beg the harvest you refuse to plant. You can't pray for results from seeds you never sowed. You can't demand breakthrough from a path you never walked. And you certainly can't blame time when the clock was never the problem, your alignment was. And now, after all this, you stand at the most powerful moment of your life, the moment where you decide to become the person who builds, or you drift back into the crowd of those who never do. There is no neutral here. There is no in-between. Either today becomes day one, or you'll look back months from now and call it one day. I'll give you a picture. See yourself 6 months from now. Not in fantasy, but in clarity. You're walking into your home, your business, your relationships with strength. Your mornings are structured. Your voice is calmer. Your plans are on paper and in motion. You finish what you start. You know your priorities. You look in the mirror and you like who's showing up. You're not perfect, but you are present. You are building. And everything in your life feels earned, not given. Not stumbled into, built, brick by brick, discipline by discipline, review by review. That future is not fantasy. It is a direct result of the decision you make now. And here's what I believe. You're not late, but you are responsible. You are not broken, but you must be built. No one's coming to rescue you. No one's going to schedule your habits or stop your distractions or carry your energy. That's your job. And the longer you wait, the more of your own life you forfeit to drift. You don't need more information. You need more execution. You need to get serious. You need to decide. Not out of hype, but out of honor. Honor for the gift of time. Honor for the potential that's been placed inside you. Honor for the future that depends on who you choose to become. So here is your final charge. Frame it. Speak it. Live it. This is the season I stop wishing and start building. This is the season I take ownership of every minute I've been given. This is the season I build the life I want, one aligned action at a time. Because the truth is simple. The life you want will not be handed to you. It must be constructed. It will not fall from the sky. It must rise from the ground. And your hands, your focus, your structure, your attitude, they are the tools. And you already have them. So the question is not whether the next 6 months can change everything. The question is, will you? Don't wait for the clock to push you. Let discipline pull you. Don't ask for more time. Start using the time you have. Because what you build in the next 6 months will either be a monument to your excuses or the foundation of the future you finally had the courage to claim. The frame is in your hands now. Decide.